Hello traders, this is Jason with MotiveWave. Welcome to today's webinar, Customizing MotiveWave's Order Flow Charts. In this webinar, we will be showing you 3 different order flow charts, and then I'll show you how to recreate them from scratch in a new workspace. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to attend. Today's presentation will be approximately 30 to 40 minutes. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. There should be a Q&A button on your Zoom controls, where you'll be able to type in your questions and feedback. So go ahead and do that at any time. This webinar recording will be posted to our YouTube page and/or the video tutorial section on our website. If you're watching this webinar on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. Before we get into the content, I'm just going to go over a quick disclaimer. There is substantial risk of loss in trading commodity futures, options, stocks, equities, indices, cryptocurrencies, and foreign exchange products. Futures and options trading has large potential reward, but also large potential risk. You must be aware of these risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the markets. And please do not trade with money you can't afford to lose. We have posted CFTC Rule 4.41 for you to read. And just to let you know, MotiveWave has a 14-day risk-free trial, and you can sign up at motivewave.com. So before we get started, we just need to talk about the data requirements for the features I'll be discussing today. The depth of market and the order heat map study require market depth, which is also known as level 2 data. The volume imprint and a few other studies require historical tick data. So you'll need to make sure that your connection supports market depth and historical tick data. Futures connections such as Rhythmic and CQG offer high quality data. And for that reason, I'll be using a Rhythmic data feed for the demonstration today. The advanced DOM, volume imprint, order heat map, and big trade studies are available on MotiveWave's Order Flow, Professional, and Ultimate editions. All right, so as mentioned earlier, we'll be just taking a look at 3 different order flow charts and recreating them from scratch in a new workspace. I have them set up as kind of a higher level view, a lower level footprint, and then a low level heat map trade execution chart. Since I'm limited to a 1080p screen, I've separated these pages, but in reality, you could combine them, all these charts, into 1 or 2 pages, depending on your screen real estate. So let's just take a look at the first chart page. I have this one labeled profile here. This is my higher level overview chart. I have a 15-minute ES chart up with a volume profile on the left here. And this is using the volume imprint study. I also have the OHLC study, which is showing the daily open, high, low, and close. And I also have an ETH and RTH VWAP study. The second page, which I've labeled imprint, this is showing 2 side-by-side 6 Renko charts with a footprint on the left and a delta chart on the right. Each have various customizations. These are my lower level footprint charts. And the third page that I have, which is labeled heat map, is showing the order heat map and big trade studies along with the DOM attached on the right side. This is my low-level trade execution chart. So as mentioned, the profile page will show the 15-minute chart with the daily volume profile, ETH and RTH VWAP study. So let's jump over to a second instance of MotiveWave with a default workspace layout, and let's start replicating this workspace. I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect and then start up a second instance of MotiveWave. And I'll move that over to the screen once I get it started up. Okay, here we go. It's just going to be loading some data for a few seconds here. So we can start out by adding some of the pages. So we had a profile, an imprint, and a heat map page. I could use this page right here as profile. If I wanted to just rename this page, I would just right click down at the page bottom here saying home, right click over that, click edit page. And then I can rename this profile. Okay. And if I want to add pages, I can click this little plus icon next to all the pages. It's going to allow me to create a new chart page. I'll just select the single chart page, and I'm going to call this one Imprint. Select OK, and I'll add another one and call it Heatmap. If I want to reorganize these, I can just click and drag them to any position I want. So I'm just going to move these over. And then I'm just going to actually remove all the pages that I don't need to see. So you can do that by clicking the little X next to the page name. And I will also remove some of these panels that I don't need to see. If I want to remove all these studies on a chart, I can do so by by pressing Control A on my keyboard, which selects all, and then pressing the delete key. Okay, so let's get started. So we've removed all the studies. And if we wanted to create a custom theme, let's say our theme was currently set to dark, and we wanted to create a custom blue theme to match this one. We could go into the Configure Preferences menu, which is also available by clicking this gear icon in the top toolbar. We can go over to Theme, and then go over to Chart Theme, and click this plus sign to create a new one. So I'm going to call this one Midnight Blue. And I need to select which theme it's going under. So if it's under a light theme, it's only going to show up in light theme workspaces. Since this is a dark theme, I need to select dark. And all these options that are currently set are perfect for me. I just want to change the background color. So I can go over to more colors, and I could set the color using hue, saturation, brightness, RGB, or web. I'm just going to use RGB. And I already know my values. So it's going to be 25 red, 27 green, and 40 blue. So I can click OK, click OK again. We can see that Midnight Blue is added. I can go over to my theme tab again and select Midnight Blue. And now all my charts are using this color. So the next thing I want to do is add the last price line across the chart. And I also want to remove, it's quite hard to see in this video, but I have indicators showing the best bid and best ask, and I don't want to see those. So I can go back into the Configure Preferences menu, go into Chart, and then Indicators, and I can remove the best bid and best ask indicator. Maybe I want to add the average entry price. I could do that as well. And I can click this line check mark here, click OK. And now we can see we have a line at our last price. Another thing that I like to do is go over into the Configure Preferences chart and set my display bars. So it's currently set to 85%. What this means is 85% of the chart will be taken up by chart bars, and there'll be 15% blank space on the right. So I kind of like to increase this to something like 95%. And now we can see that I only have 5% of the chart with blank space. So if we go back and take a look at our example chart, we have the RTH with a light colored background here. In order to do that, I could add the time frame study. So let's go to Study, All Studies, and search for time frame, and add this study. So this study will add a background fill for a certain time of day. I'm Mountain Time, so RTH for me would be 7:30 a.m. and that's going to go all the way to 3 p.m. And then I can select my fill color. If we If we want it to be a color that blends in more with the background, we can set the opacity here. Let's set it down to 4%. Everything else looked good. So we're just going to click the create button. And there, now we have our background shaded for RTH. You can see we have vertical time axis lines here. If I want to remove those, I can go into Configure Preferences menu, over to Chart, Time Axis, and then I could remove these vertical lines if I wanted. That makes the chart a little cleaner, so that looks good. And let's go ahead and add this volume profile. So we can do that using the volume imprint study. So we go to Study All Studies, search for imprint. And the most important thing when adding a daily volume profile with the volume imprint study is going over to the Options tab and setting the bar size to 1 day. By default, it's going to try to add the study to whatever your bar size is, which is 15 minutes. So we're just going to set this to 1 day. And we're actually going to underlay it. So it's underneath the candles, just so they're easier to see. So let's take a look at the General tab again. We have it set to profile, which is correct. We can set the tick interval to one tick. I'll set it to 2. It might make the profile look a little better. And then we can set how many daily imprints we want. So for now, we'll just go with 7. And for the profile, I like them to line up at the start of the day. So I'm going to set this to start of bar. And we can go on to the display tab. We're not going to show the open close, which just shows a open close bar. We don't need to see that. And I'm actually going to constrain the width of these profiles. I think I will set a max width of something around 300 pixels should be good. And then since we set profile as our type here, we need to go over to the profile tab to set up our volume profile. A line left, that is good. For bar color, I kind of want it to blend in with the background. So what I'm going to do is set it to white and then change the opacity to something like 20%. I believe that'll be good. I want to see the POC, so I can set that here. We'll just go with a gray color. And we don't want to show an imbalance. We don't need to see label font. So I'm just going to uncheck those. And let's click create. So right now we're just downloading some tick data and then displaying these profiles on the chart. So that looks pretty good. That's a good representation of what we had before. The next study we want to add is the OHLC study. So let me go ahead and add that now. We actually have 2 of them. We have one for daily, or excuse me, one for regular session and one for extended session. So let's go ahead, add a new study, OHLC. I'm going to set this one to the extended session. 5 prints is fine. And then for this one, I'm just going to select the high, the low, and the previous close. And we're going to create that now. And I'm going to add another one. So I can go back into my recent studies, OHLC. This one, I want to see the regular session because I want to see the open. So we're going to uncheck all the other lines. I just want to see the RTH open on the chart. So I can click create. And now we have the RTH open. And the next study after the OHLC is the VWAP. So we have a RTH VWAP regular session and the extended session VWAP as shown in a pink color. So we can go to study all studies, add VWAP. For charts, for RTH data, we're going to show the extended session. We're going to do kind of a pinky color, a width of 2, and let's create that one. And you can see it's loading just now. Perfect. And then I'll quickly add an RTH view up as well. So we'll set this session to regular. And for line color, we'll do kind of like a light blue. That'll be good. Click create. And then our RTH view op should show up. There it is. You can see it right there and right here. Perfect. So I think that replicates our daily volume profile 15-minute chart pretty well. So now that that's complete, let's take a look actually at the imprint chart that we're trying to reproduce here. So as you can see, we have we have two 6 Renko charts. The chart on the left is showing a footprint profile that is highlighting buy and sell imbalances greater than 2%. So the sell imbalance will be red and the buy imbalance will be green. So this chart could be useful to see where aggressive buyers and sellers come into the market and where they're positioned. And the chart on the right is displaying a delta volume profile, but is only displaying delta totals that are above plus 100 contracts or below minus 100 contracts for that price level. So this chart could be useful to see if there are any large delta figures at certain areas where you could use this to spot trap traders at the highs or lows of market swings. So let's go ahead back to our new workspace and try to recreate this one. So we had 2 charts. I'm just going to remove the volume from this one. I'm going to add another chart by clicking this plus icon, selecting chart. ES is good. Now I can remove the volume here. I can click and drag this tab to where I want it positioned. I want the charts side by side, so I'd move it over here and let go of my mouse. Now we have 2 15-minute charts side by side. But we need to recreate a 6 Renko bar. I can easily create a 6 Renko bar by right-clicking the chart, going to Renko interval, and selecting 6. And I can do the same for the other chart. Okay, so this one, we have the volume imprint study, which is showing a footprint. So let's go ahead and add the volume imprint study. We have used that previously. So for this one, we want it to be on the 6 Renko, so we don't need to change anything in the options menu. But we do want to increase the imprint count because we want to see more than 20 of them. So we can do something like 200. And for the column, we want to set it to bid ask. We can leave the align into middle. That's perfect. On the display tab, I'm just going to uncheck show open close. I don't need to see that. And then we're going to jump over to the bid ask tab. For this one, I don't want to show the fill. I want it to be a very clean chart. So I'm going to uncheck that. We want to show the imbalance because we were showing imbalances, but I do not want to see the POC outline. So we're just going to disable that. And we're actually going to change the label color. The label font's fine, but I want the label color to kind of blend in almost with the chart background. So we're just going to choose a gray there. And then let's go ahead and create this and see how it looks. Oh, I don't know if I messed something up there. Did I accidentally press cancel? That could have happened. Let's go ahead and create that quickly again. Go back to bid ask, imprint count 200. Display, turn that off. I'm not going to show the fill, the POC, and let's change the label color. So just going to click create. Oh, sorry, I know what's happening here. My chart scaling is not set, so I'm actually not able to see any of the profiles. So what I'm going to do here is just go through some of the scaling. So I want to get out of auto scale. I can do that by clicking this button up here. And then I want to rescale the chart. I can click and drag the price axis. And now we can see the volume imprint showing up. What I can also do if I want to change the scale is double click the chart background to get into the chart settings. Go over to the scaling and then set the scale type to price range. And we want to use ticks. We could use something like 75. I think that would be good for this chart. We're going to click OK. Now you can see that all of our profiles are bunched up. What we first probably want to do is remove the candlesticks. We can do that by going to the bar type dropdown here, selecting no bars. And then I can click and drag on the time axis to resize this. And as you can see, none of the imbalances are showing up right now. So what we're going to need to do is go back into the volume imprint study, go over to the imbalance tab, and then we actually have to enable the imbalances. So I want to show 200% imbalances. So I need to enable the ask font and the bid font. Click update. And now we can see the buy imbalances shown in green text and sell imbalances shown in red text. So that looks like a pretty good representation of what we had. Let's jump over quickly and do the delta chart here. So, it looks like I actually threw that volume imprint on this one. So let's just go ahead and delete that. And we'll create a new one. So we want this one set to 200 profiles as well, but this time we want to set this to delta. We want to see a delta profile. We're going to remove the show open close, and then we're going to jump over to the delta tab here. We'd like to see the fill on this one, and we'd also like to see the histogram of that fill. So I'm just going to enable the histogram and align it to the left side, which looks good. I don't want to show the imbalance, and I also don't want to show the POC. And I think everything else there looks pretty good, except for we actually had a size filter. So I didn't want to see any delta values lower than 100 contracts. So we're just going to enable this size filter here and then click create. And we can see the volume imprint was added to this chart. I'm going to go ahead, remove the bars, and then rescale this chart. Remove auto scale, and then I'm actually going to set the scaling to the exact same as this chart, which was 75 ticks. Click OK. And just resize the bar width again. You can access the bar width in the chart settings as well. You can see it right here, bar width in pixels, 37. So I can increase or decrease the bar width through the chart settings. And we can kind of align them like this. So now we can kind of see any delta values that are higher or lower than 100 contracts at each price level. All right, so that is the end of the imprint. Let's jump over to our initial workspace here and then take a look at Heatmap. So this third and final page, we have the order heat map, which is just showing a visual representation of the current and past levels of the DOM depth levels. The big trade study right here will show trade executions as various circle sizes depending on their volume. We also have the zigzag study here, which will show market swing highs and lows, as well as measure the swing distance in points. You can see this swing distance was 7.5 points. And we also at the bottom here have a cumulative delta study that's overlaid on the bottom of the chart. Another thing to note is we have a few study controls in the top toolbar. So we'll touch on these when we add the studies to our page. So let's jump back over to our workspace, go over to the heat map page. And we're going to start out by changing the bar size. So you'll notice in our example here, we're using a 500 millisecond chart. If we want to add a millisecond chart, we need to go into our chart settings. On the bar settings tab, we need to set the bar size to linear, interval type to millisecond, and then the interval 500 milliseconds. So we can click OK. And you can see now we have a 500 millisecond chart. And it's actually showing price candles right now, but I don't want to see price candles. So I'm going to change the bar type. And let's say I wanted to change this to square line. I could do that, and that looks all right. One thing I don't particularly like is the color. If I just want to change the color of, or the bar theme of one chart, you just go into the chart settings by double clicking the background, over to theme, and then we can set our bar theme just for this one chart. And I could set this to aqua, and that'll make it stand out a little better. And then if we want to go into the bar width, I think things are a little wide here with this 6 pixel bar width. So I'm just going to drop this down to 2 pixels so we can see a little more data. And then as you can see, a line chart type, so line or square line, it will show the symbol by default right to the right side of the line. I don't really want to see that. I know it's the ES. So I can go into the chart settings, and under this line chart label is set to symbol. I can set this to none, click OK. And now that ESM2 label is gone. So for this heat map, I don't really want auto scale on. I prefer to use a price range scaling. So I'm going to click auto scale off up here. And then I can change my price range scaling right into the chart settings under the scalings tab. I think something around 80 ticks is good. And for my ticks from edge, I'm going to set this to 24 ticks. What that's going to do is when the last price gets within 24 ticks of the bottom or top of the chart, it's just going to recenter it. So what this is going to do essentially is just keep the last price within the center of the chart. So I can click OK. And if I move this up, you're going to see it's going to bump it back into the middle of the chart. So it's never going to get too close to the top or bottom of the chart. All right, so next is the order heat map study. So let's go to study all studies and search for heat map and add the order heat map. We can leave the max depth levels. I'm just going to change the color map to one of the built-in ones here. If you'd like to change any of the colors, you can go to more colors and add any colors that you'd like here. Opacity, I will set this to something like 80%. I kind of want it to blend in a little. Min size filter, I'm going to set this to 0. And my max size filter, I usually like to set this between 95 and 100%. So I'm just going to set it kind of in the middle. We'll go with 97%. We don't want to see any of the lines. We want to extend the latest DOM so it extends forward. And options, we don't really want to touch that. But for the toolbar tab, we had some of these controls up here. So what I'd like to see is I'd like to add a control for the max size filter. So I can click show in toolbar and select max size filter. That's going to do is add the control to the toolbar. So let's click create. And we can see we have our order heat map on the chart now. And if I want to just quickly on the fly change this max size filter, I can do so up here just by clicking and dragging. So 97 looks pretty good. We're going to keep that. And next study we have is the big trades. So let's go ahead and add the big trade study. It's showing any trades that are larger than 25 contracts. So let's go to study all studies, go to big trades. And since I'm using Rhythmic can aggregate these by the actual order ID number. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Max circle size, we can set it to 50, see how that looks. But the min trade size, we want to change this to 25. Advanced, we don't need to do anything under there or options. One thing we do want is to add a control for this max circle size. So on the toolbar, I can click Show in Toolbar, select Max Circle Size, and then click Create. And now we're going to see all of our large trades on the chart. And if I want to change the largest circle size, I can do so by clicking and dragging this control up in the toolbar to any number that I like. Just very quickly and easily do that. So that is the big trade study. Next, we have the zigzag. So let's add that now. We'll go to Study, All Studies, search for zigzag. High input's going to be using high, low input's going to be using low. And I actually want to select the zigzag based off of reversal ticks and not percent. So I can click the reversal ticks enable here. And I could choose something like, for the ES, something like 12 ticks will be good. I want it to show price movement, price labels, and I want the label to be offset so it doesn't interfere with any of the big trade studies. So I can do that now. Let's say we'll offset 10 pixels. Hopefully that will be enough. And I can create this, but I know for a fact that I do not want to see the retrace lines. I think they kind of crowd the chart a little bit, so I'm just going to remove those. And then go over to the toolbar tab. What I actually want to be able to change really quickly is the reversal ticks, because it'll just depend on how volatile the market is at the time. You may want to increase or decrease this number. So let's add the reversal ticks to the top toolbar and click Create. Now we kind of have a nice visual zigzag study showing, different market swings and how many points those market swings were. So 9 3/4 points for this swing here. And we can quickly decrease the amount of ticks for a swing if we'd like to, or increase them depending on how volatile the market is. And our last study for this heat map chart is the cumulative delta study, which we have shown down here in green. So let's go ahead and add that. We'll go to Study, All Studies, and search for cumulative delta. And for the bar type, I am actually using a line. So I'm going to go ahead and select line. And I can actually edit this line if I click the pencil icon here. And I can change the color policy. So I could just set it to a single color and that's fine. But what I can also do is set it to positive and negative. So then I can change the line color depending on whether there's a positive delta or negative delta. So for positive color, I'll do a bright green, and negative color, a bright red. Line width, we could do something like 2 pixels. I think that would probably be good. For the rest of the settings, I do want it to auto scale. If you don't select auto scale, it's always going to scale the study so it shows the 0 line. So if you just want to see what's viewable without the 0 line, enable this auto scale option. Reset RTH will reset the cumulative delta at the start of RTH, but I want to show the ETH session, so I'm going to uncheck that. And for this study, I don't really need to show anything in the toolbar, so I'm just going to leave that alone for now. And let's click Create. What that's going to do is just add a study to the bottom of your chart. But if we want this chart, or excuse me, if we want this study to overlay on the chart, we can actually go into the study settings and go over to the Options tab. And then you can see we have a choice for the graph of cumulative delta, or we can choose price graph. So we can overlay on the price graph. We'll select that now. And then at the bottom section here, we can choose where to overlay it. So I want to overlay it on the bottom of the chart, and then you can select the height of this study. I'll do something like 200 pixels. We'll click Update. Now you can see we have our cumulative delta overlaid on the chart itself. So that looks good. I think that covers everything for the heat map that we had. But what we haven't touched on yet is the DOM. So let's move our focus over there. You can see with the previous setup, we've actually combined the bid ask columns into a single column. And it's using MBO data to view large resting orders in the book. As you can see, these large resting orders are highlighted here. So we have a 20 contract order there, 10 contract there. So let's try to reproduce this. And just so you guys know, MBO data is only currently available with Rhythmic. So you need a Rhythmic connection in order to see these individual orders in the book. So we can add, or we can attach a DOM to a chart by just clicking the DOM button up in the top toolbar. And you can see we have our basic layout right now. So what I'm going to do is remove the PL, bid, and ask columns. I don't really care to see my profit and loss, bid, and ask. And then I'm going to add just the bid ask column itself, the combined one. So that is right there. I'm going to move the orders over here and add the bid ask column right here. I can maybe shrink the size of the order column and the price column. And I can actually increase the bid ask column width because we want to see those resting orders in the book with that MBO data. So I'll just make that a little wider. And then let's go into the DOM preferences and try to replicate what we had. So you can access that by clicking the gear icon up top of the DOM panel. And then we can go through some of the DOM preferences. If I want to see a few more levels, I can actually decrease the row height. So let's do that now. It's set to 24 pixels high for each row. We're going to knock this down to 20. And you can see it's displaying more levels now. For the next thing we want to do is enable this disable recenter when mouse is above table. What that's going to do is if you're hovering your mouse over top ready to place an order, it's not going to automatically recenter the DOM. So you accidentally click an incorrect price level. So we can just enable that now. And the rest of the settings here look decent. Let's jump over to the order tab. For the order tab, since I'm using a single column, I might want to use a shift key to send market orders. So I can change shift key to market order and market order. And if we go over to the bottom panel, I think I had removed the spread. Since this is on the ES, the spread is usually a quarter point. So we can go into the bottom panel, click the flow plane account chooser, this flow plane here. We're just going to edit that and remove the spread. Click OK, apply, and we can see the spread's now gone. For the dividers tab, I think the bid divider is fine. I like seeing that. And over to the price column. On the price column, I had the high-low background of the price column colored a different shade. So we can do that now by going to this session high-low fill. We can enable this, excuse me, and set a different color. Click apply. And I'll click OK. Now we can see that our high-low is in the price column is set to a different color. So that looks good. I like to see that. Let's go back into the preferences under the price column. One other thing I want to add is the average entry, something I like to see. I like to see my entries show up in the price column, so I can enable that now, but I don't necessarily want to see the quantity, so I can disable that here. All the settings look good. I think I'll keep that as it is. One other thing, the volume, what I could do, it's up to personal preference, but I could align the volume to the left side instead of the right side. It kind of bumps up against the bid ask tab here. And then we're going to jump over to the bid ask tab. This is where we're going to enable the MBO. So first thing I'm going to do is scale the visible rows only. That way we don't have a large bidder offer, a few hundred ticks outside the market that's scaling the entire bid and ask columns. So we enable that. I want to offset the MBO histogram so it's not underneath the actual bid-ask numbers. So I'm going to do that now. And then I'm going to enable this MBO filter and the MBO font. What that's going to do is it's actually going to show the orders in the bid-ask tab. So I'll quickly show you. It's only going to show orders 10 contracts or higher. And I'll also enable the font. Yellow stands out really nicely. So let's click OK. And now we can see the actual orders in the queue. So we can see up here, we have a fairly large 20 lot at 42.96.25. And the beginning of the queue would be right here, and the end of the queue would be on this side. If we scroll up a little more, we can see at 4,300, we have a large that looks like a 60 lot. It's kind of hard to, maybe that's an 80 lot, kind of hard to tell from the distance away that I'm sitting. And 430775, we have a large 50 lot sitting there. Perfect. So that kind of shows you how to replicate the DOM setup that we had, which is going to show us our MBO data or the large resting orders in the DOM. So that wraps up the presentation. Hopefully it provides a few helpful tips to get your order flow workspaces up and running. If you have any questions, you can let me know via the Q&A feature in Zoom. And let's see if there are any questions now. So first question, arriving late, is this being recorded? Yes, this is. This is being recorded. It'll likely be posted to YouTube first. So Ken asks, how would I be able to contact you where questions and usage issues arise? So let me bring up this slide here again. If you have any tech questions, you can email support@motivewave.com. And that's how you'll really want to contact us with any support issues. A lot of the times we'll need maybe screenshots, workspace backups, stuff like that. So we generally email is the best communication method. So thanks, Ken. So someone asks, I am a recent buyer, but uncertain how to keep a chart layout for each new symbol I access. So that is a good question. One method you could use, depending on your setup, if you just want to keep this exact same chart here, but just switch the symbol, go into View, Lock Studies, and that's going to keep all these studies on this chart if you change a symbol. So I could change this to NQ. And it's going to keep all those studies. Obviously, we're going to have to go back and reload a whole bunch of NQ tick data. So this may take a little while. So that is one easy method that you could use. If you have different charts, you could use chart templates, which is down here in the bottom right corner of MotiveWave. You could create a template. I could go save as template here, name this template, and then actually let's go ahead and do that now. So just call this test, click save as, and then if I wanted to add this to a new chart, I would click the template button down here and select test. And it's going to ask me to replace the studies. I say yes. Now it's going to load all those same studies as a template onto this new chart. So that's another method that you could use. Greg asked when this video will be available. Hopefully soon, Greg. Just needs to be reviewed and then posted to YouTube. I believe we are a video or two behind, so hopefully we'll get that up as soon as possible. I'm not quite sure what this means. It says I have an issue with indicators tabs in the chart disappear for older ones. Is there a way to show all the active indicators? I assume you mean studies. You can see all the studies by going to, View, Object Viewer, and then you can see all the studies on the chart. Or as a keyboard shortcut, just press Alt-V, and then it's going to give you all those studies, and you could edit them. You can see if they're hidden, and you can lock them from this menu here. If I didn't answer that question correctly, just email support@motivewave.com and we'll take care of you. Alice asks, may we mix the OFA, I assume you mean order flow analytics, with your created order flow charts? Yeah, I don't see why not. You can use the order flow add-on with our charts. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Norman asks, how did you get the 3 panels for one chart? Norman, do you mean these pages down here? If so, you can add a new page. If you only have one page here, it's not going to show the page menu. So you can go to File, New Page, and that's going to be able to add a page. If you're referring to this part where we had multiple chart tabs, you can just add a chart if you'd like. You could add another 6 Renko chart, and you can click and drag them anywhere you want to place them. Let me know if I didn't answer that correctly, Norman. Alice asks, will I receive confirming results mixing OFA with your creation of order flow? I'm not quite sure. It depends on what you're displaying with the OFA add-on. But volume is volume. So whatever you see on order flow analytics should show up in MotiveWave. It's from the same data source, so it shouldn't really be conflicting. Okay, thank you. Durko asks, Unirenko available for MotiveWave? Not currently. We do not currently have Unirenko. I believe it has been requested before. What I'll do is I'll actually quickly just make a note here. I'll add another request to our feature request sheet. I know it's been requested by a couple of the users, so I'll add your name to the list. And hopefully that's something that we can add in the future. Okay. Okay, it looks like Ken, you want your name added for Unirenko as well? Perfect, ×2. Thanks for the feedback. Please also add next day prices. I wish. Another question we have here is, when you have 2 charts next to each other, like your 2 Renko charts, and you have multiple indicators in each chart, but they're all laid out laterally, is there a way to access the settings for the indicator you want on one of those multiple side-by-side charts without first maximizing the chart to access the gear icon to the indicator listed to the right side of the chart? Does this view object viewer answer your question? View object viewer, is that kind of what you're looking for? I'm not quite sure I fully understand that question, but Alt-V on your keyboard will bring up all the studies for that selected chart. So you just select that chart, Alt and V, and then your studies show up. I hope that answers. I may not have understood that correctly. Can you make a 4-point and figure chart with the footprint? Yes, you can. So we could do that here. We can go into the chart settings. On the bar settings tab, we can change the bar size to point and figure, and box size would be 1. And I assume you mean a 4 reversal. So we'll do that. Click OK. And this scale is not going to be perfect, but you'd have your point and figure 4 chart there. Perfect. All right. Hopefully that answers a few of your questions. So I guess to wrap up, if you have any other questions, or if I didn't answer your question here, please email support@motivewave.com and we'll be able to answer that for you. So I apologize if I didn't get that question answered correctly. Just let us know at support@motivewave.com. And I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join this webinar. Have a great afternoon.